today I wanted to talk about what it really means to be a fractional CFO. So perhaps not the LinkedIn headline version, the day-to-day. So if you're a finance professional considering becoming one, then this video is for you. I'll walk you through what a fractional CFO actually is, why so many startups are hiring them, and what the job kind of looks like behind the scenes. It's not just investor decks and spreadsheets, that there is kind of more to it. So just to introduce myself, my name is Alysha Randall. I am a fractional CFO, so I do know what I'm talking about for fast growth consulting. But I also train new and aspiring CFOs within startups or scale ups. So if that sounds like you, please do hit the subscribe button and also check out my book. Oh, I've gone missing. Financial Leadership Fundamentals, How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale-Up. So let's kind of start with the basics. What is a fractional CFO? So essentially, it's someone who is a CFO, but is part-time strategic leader. So they work with multiple businesses, not just one, usually startups and early stage scale-ups on a part-time or project basis. So they will be doing things like budgeting, like preparing for a fundraise or going through that fundraise, so providing that fundraising support, cash flow, runway planning, often cleaning up messy reporting, cleaning up the finances. Often a fractional CFO is the first person who has that finance leadership insight into the company. So they may have just had a bookkeeper before. So there usually is quite a bit of work to do in those first 6 months. Also helping founders understand what the numbers are actually saying. So some founders are amazingly astute when it comes to finances, particularly in fintech. Some really aren't, and so they need a translator. Some sit in the middle potentially, and this is where most of them are, where they think they know, but maybe they don't. So, you know, the beauty of it though is really get all the benefits of a strategic finance leader without full-time salary or overhead from a founder's perspective. So it's a real game changer for founders. For finance professionals, it's a flexible, high impact career path. So I would say from my personal experience, I created Fast Growth Consulting back in September 2019. Aside from the fact that it's not the best time to start a brand new company 6 months before a global pandemic, there were two main reasons for me for wanting to start as a fractional CFO. The first one was flexibility. So you don't necessarily need to be a parent, but for me personally, my children had just started school. I didn't have that luxury of a childcare centre opening from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every night, 51 weeks of the year. I had children that were in from 9 till 3 with 14 weeks holiday. And so for me personally, I found that being a fractional gave me that flexibility. Obviously, if you're not working, you're not getting paid, but being able to manage my time around when the children needed me worked for me. I know other fractionals, for example, they have hobbies or they want to have that flexibility because they're more of a night owl, or they like an early bird, or they have to take care of their parents, or whatever that it is. There are plenty of fractional CFOs that move to this path because they want that flexibility. The second reason for me personally is I was at the stage of my career where I could have worked for, say, a Series C plus scale up as a finance leader. But I actually really enjoy that nitty gritty craziness of early stage businesses. I really like the seed Series A stage, and I had been there a couple of times before and just seen that real fast trajectory. I also knew what good looks like. So I knew, having exited having worked with two businesses that had exited, I knew what it took to get there. And so that kind of worked in my favor. But for me personally, it was because I wanted to work in that early stage. And being the experienced leader that I was, no early stage business is going to hire me full time. They just can't afford it. And also, to be quite honest, it wouldn't be enough for me to do. So therefore, Fractional worked from that perspective as well, to be able to do the work that I wanted to do. I started probably the first couple of years, I worked as a fractional CFO on my own. So I was the only person working for Fast Growth Consulting. I now have a team that works with me. So I'm managing more of the team rather than just the clients. But when I go through what a day-to-day looks like, I will be talking about as if I was just starting. So 2019, 2020, this was the type of things that I was doing. So why are startups hiring fractional CFOs? So startups, I've kind of alluded to this, but startups are generally running quite lean. They've got a bookkeeper, maybe they have a junior finance manager, but realistically, when it comes to strategy, forecasting, board packs, investor readiness, that's where a fractional CFO can really step in. And what founders generally need help with are those things. So they need often help to translate that chaos into a plan, to really build a real budget that they can actually track against. I've often come in where they just don't have a budget, or the founder has put something together in Excel. The P&L is cash basis and there's no balance sheet or cash flow. Improve cash flow visibility. That's really important. Again, that accrual versus cash basis, understanding cash conversion cycles, all that fun stuff. Usually preparing for a fundraise or due diligence. That's probably one of the key things. It's either they don't trust their numbers, they want a budget, or they want to prepare for a fundraise. And then also off the back of that, building finance processes that won't fall over as they grow. Most early stage teams can't justify a full-time CFO. They really just need someone who's done this before, can get in, sort it out, and really elevate the finance function. So what does a day in the life look like? If you decide to go to a fractional CFO role, what do you actually do day to day? So here's kind of a breakdown of what you could be doing. So the first one, I don't think this is any different from a full-time job, and that is checking your dashboard. So having a look at your cash flows, your revenue versus targets, overdue invoices maybe, cost spikes, anything urgent. And usually it's going through emails. I do find founders often email me late at night or early in the morning, depending on what type of person they are, because they've thought of something that they want me to look at, or they need to have a call to explain something or what have you. At 10 o'clock, I like to do founder calls early in the morning. Usually founders are easier to catch. So this could be a weekly check-in, a board deck review, or helping them prepare for the fundraise. The founder sometimes just needs some advice. So you just want to go through things quite quickly. You want to be quite commercial when you're speaking to them, and you just want to talk about what really matters. So usually between 10 a.m, 11:30 a.m. is when I would be spending my time having catch-ups with founders. From 11:30, I would do strategic problem solving. This when you actually do work. So maybe a client's trying to restructure their spend, another one needs to pivot the business model and update their forecast, or you're digging into numbers and offering options, not just questions. It's, dedicating some time to basically get your hands dirty. You're not just in meetings all the time. You do need to really get your hands dirty. I know, for example, at the end of my tenure at Funding Circle, it was a listed entity. It was quite big. I spent 99.9% of my time in meetings. When you're a fractional CFO, that is not the case. It's probably about 50-50. 1 o'clock I'd have lunch or not. I do actually really try. I would say 4 out of 5 days a week I do have a lunch break. It usually means going for a walk, going to the local supermarket, pick up something for dinner, whatever it is. I do try to make that time. I find that I'm better if I do take a break. So I actually do have lunch break in my calendar, because I use Calendly to help to give out to my founders when they want to book a meeting with me. If they want to do something over and above the recurring. And so if I have a time in my diary for lunch or when I have to pick up the kids or whatever it is, they can't book that time. So sometimes, yes, I have to eat at the desk, but most of the time I do try to get away. Early afternoon, usually then I would catch up with supporting junior finance. So whether it is catching up with the in-house finance manager, troubleshooting some issues, coaching or mentoring the people that are working either in my team or in the client's team. I do spend quite a bit of time in meetings then with essentially the finance team. So whether the finance team is within the client or within my company, it's spending time with them. From 3 p.m., I like to do focus work. So whether that is focus work for the client, which it generally was in those early days, or sometimes, well, more so now than it was in the early days, is doing sales and marketing. So that is probably another really big difference between working for yourself and working for a company, is that not only do you have to deal with multiple clients, you also are a business owner, and so you do have to do sales and marketing. So whether that is on social media or direct messaging or networking or having sales calls or whatever it is, you do have to spend time doing sales and marketing, at least an hour every single day. So that's like gives you horror, then perhaps fractional CFO works not for you, or you need to find someone like me and work for a company like myself. So I have fractionals working for me that just can't imagine doing sales and marketing, and that's fine. I do it for the company and they work for me, and so then they don't have to do any sales and marketing. But I would say that is something that you need to consider before taking the jump, is that you do have to do you do have to do sales and marketing. And then, roughly 5 p.m, say I'd wrap up. So do emails, do summaries, Slack messaging, preparing for tomorrow. So no, you're not just consulting, you are really embedded. You are a thought partner, you are part of the team, you are someone that the founder really depends on. So similarly, what you would do in your corporate role, you kind of taking that same role, just part-time. So what you really need to succeed, so if you're really thinking about a fractional CFO, what you really need is some strong commercial acumen. I would say sometimes that comes because you've been in a strategic role before, or you have been trained to think very commercially in your current role. I would say that that's really important. You don't just want to be technical. You want to be comfortable switching between business models and tech stacks. So there is a bit of juggling. There is operational considerations. If you find jumping from different tasks, different business models, different tech stacks daunting, then perhaps this isn't for you, but it is worthwhile saying that. You also need to be excellent at time management. So you will be juggling, if you're on your own, I'd say 2 to 4 clients at any one time. So you have to be able to make sure that you hit all of the deadlines for all of the clients, not just 1 or 2 of them. You want to be confident in leading conversations with boards, investors, founders. You should have had experience with that. You want to be able to simplify complex commercials into business decisions. So the best fractional CFOs aren't just technical, they are very strategic and pragmatic. So they help the founder move faster and not just get lost in reporting. So to really get started as a fractional CFO, how do you start? Step 1, I would say, is to get as much experience as you can first, because when you switch to fractional, you don't get upskilled. You have to do your own training and you have to seek out the gaps that you have in your own knowledge. Ideally, you get as much experience in your corporate role as possible. Founders want to hire you because you've done something before. They're not going to hire you because they think you're a lovely person and they think that you might have the knowledge to do it because you're smart. unfortunately, that's not the way it is. They want you to be able to say, oh yes, I remember when we did this when I was working for this company, so therefore I can do it for you as well. So that is definitely your step one. Your step two is potentially you might want to get your first client before quitting your job. That obviously is dependent on your financial situation. So either you have enough cash in the bank or your partner can support you, and therefore you don't need to do that. But freelance projects, advisory calls, network referrals, they all take time. Some of them can be really quick. You speak to a founder and 2 weeks later you're starting to work with them 1 to 2 days a week. Some of them can take, I think the longest I've had is a 250-day sales conversion, where I spoke to them at the beginning of the year and then 250 days later they became a client. So things can take time. Step 3 is you really want to build your network. So let people know you're available. Coffee chats still do work. That was my strategy in 2019. I obviously had to change that quite quickly in 2020. LinkedIn works. So you really want to offer value to founders so they can see why you would want to hire you. Then you want to decide on your model. So do you want to work on monthly retainers? Do you want to work on project fees? Do you want to work on a mix? So you want to know what you're offering and who it's for. And then step 5 is to build your system. So you need tools for reporting, tracking time, onboarding, managing documents. Efficiency really does matter here. You don't want to be spending all your time working till 10 o'clock at night because you're not ready for it. This is, one of the reasons why you do need to be prepared as a business owner. And then step 6 is position yourself clearly. So what problems do you solve and for which kind of business? This isn't generic accounting. This is about being strategic and really impactful. So this is why step 1 is so important. So is this role, right for you? Being a fractional CFO really is rewarding, but obviously it's not for everyone. So you'll definitely have variety, you'll have autonomy and a seat at the table, but you'll also be context switching, prioritizing like mad, holding a lot in your head, or being incredibly organized. So if you really enjoy problem solving and helping founders grow sustainable businesses, then this role is one of the best ones out there. For founders, firefighting finance with spreadsheets and duct tape, it might be time to bring someone in to give you that strategic clarity without adding any headcounts. So if you want to be a confident and skilled finance leader in the next 12 months, then here's your 3 steps. The first one is to subscribe to this channel. I do weekly videos on startup finance leadership. So if that is something you're interested in, then yes, click subscribe below. Number 2 is to read my book, Financial Leadership Fundamentals. It's a very practical book on how you can become a CFO in a startup or scale up. At the end of every chapter are actions that you can implement today in your role. And the third one is to join the FLF program, where you can get the full training, tools, a community to really step into a finance director, CFO, or fractional CFO role within a startup or scale up. All the links are below. So if you've got any questions about the role or want to share your own experience, then let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Cheers.